There's always a catch, isn't there? So what is the catch with Crimson Desert? So yeah, they added de nouveau to Crimson Desert 7 days ahead of launch. But, the big question is, Digital Foundry, of course, they gave us their entire PC deep dive into the tech. The big question is, was de nouveau present on this build or not? Well, guess what? We actually have a response from Paul Tassi, who gives us details from what Pearl Abyss recently said about this. And guess what? There's actual hope here. Also, we have a new Digital Foundry video that released about, check it out, the PlayStation 5 Pro version, which features all new glorious gameplay and footage. I'm going to be breaking that down as well. But I say we start out with this news here about de nouveau and get into it right now. So yeah, I hate to break this news to you guys, but again, there's always a catch, isn't there? But if we get into this, they did also mention in this article that there will be no cross saves, and of course you can expect this DRM to be present. So when Digital Foundry was playing the game with ultra settings and everything like that, were they using de nouveau? Well, guess what? Here is the answer from Paul Tassi, who says this. This is what Pearl Abyss told me about the Crimson Desert de nouveau stuff. The benchmark videos and performance specs we released were all created with the exact same implementation of de nouveau that is in the launch build. This includes the performance videos by Digital Foundry. It's important that reviewers and benchmarkers' experience with the game is ultimately representative of the final consumer's experience. So, I guess that's, somewhat good news, because this whole, Digital Foundry presentation looks absolutely beautiful. And we only heard high praise from them about the Black Space engine. This Black Space engine is doing almost the impossible with how they're able to stream such a beautiful open world game with minimal hiccups, if barely any at all, when it comes to frame rate, stutters, and that sort of thing. Overall, from what Digital Foundry said here, they were ultimately extremely impressed with the game on PC. Even still, if you're on mid-range PC or what have you, de nouveau can actually maybe potentially really affect how your game is going to be running. So, we have concerns. The game will run far worse now. It's scummy. They didn't tell anyone. And yeah, I get the concern. So I'm crossing my fingers that at the very least, the Digital Foundry deep dive is some sort of indication that this game was optimized, knowing that de nouveau was going to be put in place. That's what I'm hoping that Pearl Abyss has done here. Because remember, I did a previous video about how Pearl Abyss has gone in every single year over the past 7 years and has done extremely unique things with optimization that a lot of game developers are absolutely refusing to do. Year over year, they heavily focused on optimizing and building the Black Space engine. And yes, Digital Foundry did release a brand new video showcasing glorious, beautiful PS5 Pro gameplay, and there is a lot of it here. I'm going to throw that link in the description below, but the rain effects look absolutely amazing right here, and it's giving me more in the line of Dragon's Dogma 2 vibes, at least visually for me personally. And I loved Dragon's Dogma 2, but this looks like this is even going to be like a step above that, of course. But yeah, let's get into some of the details about what they had to say here for the PS5 Pro version. All right, so here we go. Let's check this out.
Crimson Desert is a rare and exciting moment for us at Digital Foundry. In a landscape where Unreal Engine has become the default, and where its strengths and weaknesses are now largely predictable.
Yeah, I am pretty much over Unreal Engine 5 after they have botched so many launches. It's good to know at the very least, they're working in tandem with CD Projekt Red right now to bring us The Witcher 4 on an updated open world engine. They said it's going to be streaming beautifully, so hopefully they can match what is being done here with the Black Space engine.
Pearl Abyss has arrived with something genuinely new to explore. Their Black Space engine delivers results that are nothing short of remarkable. Yeah, there's some jank to contend with, of course, and we'll get to that, but the overall impression it leaves is striking. From performance to crowd behavior, animation.
Dude, did you look at how much is going on the screen in this shot right here. Of course, we have this beautiful look at these fields.
Crowd
But here, look
behavior,
at the
animation.
activity on the screen. Man, there are tons of NPCs. That's the one thing that I'm noticing with some of these gameplay clips is they have a lot happening with the battles. And you know, that early review video that I did recently, you can find it on the channel. It's about after 50 hours of playtime. It was said that, yeah, the battles are absolutely massive. And that's something I cannot wait to dive into. All right, let's check out what he has to say.
Freedom, foliage, lighting, everything. It is a stunning game. And on PS5 Pro here, you actually don't lose that much. For starters, the game's ray tracing features are full.
Yeah, you know, when I can see how they kind of compare this game to Red Dead Redemption 2. Look at the snow effects. Dude, you know, I was kind of forgetting that this was the PS5 Pro version there for a second. I thought we were looking at like PC Ultra just for a moment, but holy crap. Okay.
Fully present and accounted for on the Pro. The ray traced diffuse global illumination we highlighted in our PC preview, the per pixel solution, yeah, it's enabled here. This gives the game a fully
I gotta back that up because you can notice here that there is like this frost effect on the screen. That's interesting. And it does mention the daytime and Everfrost. Also, there's this indicator by the mini map that shows that it is cold, that you are in cold weather. I'm wondering if there's gameplay implications for this sort of thing. That would be very, very cool if it kind of like affected your character and you had to do some sort of planning before heading up into like a snowy region like this. That would be really cool. All right, let's keep going.
Solution, yeah, it's enabled here. This gives the game a fully dynamic, ray-traced driven lighting system.
Damn.
Sunlight pouring into a room naturally bounces across surfaces, creating dramatic, believable scenes, and it's all done fully dynamically. The same is true of local lights, which produce...
Yeah, the nighttime is true nighttime. Again, this is definitely giving more vibes towards Dragon's Dogma 2. And that's something I absolutely loved about Dragon's Dogma 2 is they had this believable nighttime. So many open world games ignores that. You know, one game in particular that I think of is Assassin's Creed Shadows. It still looks like almost like daytime with a nighttime filter. So I'm so glad to see that they're going after super realistic nighttime here.
Equally impressive results. You have a lantern in your inventory, for instance, which you can pull out at any time, and the light from your lantern produces ultra dramatic scenes, especially at night where light is scarce. Scenes like this are particularly impressive. This battle here has lights being generated by the enemies that you're fighting, and all of it is fully real time with shadows and lights dancing realistically across the terrain. It makes the battle feel so dynamic. The lighting has a distinctive quality that makes the world feel more convincing than most current-gen games. The bright blue skies stand out immediately in the...
Yeah, you know, their skyboxes are so impressive in this game. And you can kind of like peek into the Crimson Desert itself over there. It's kind of like a biome on the horizon. I'm wondering if this is going to be the area that is more difficult. Remember, each region is not going to be the same in terms of difficulty. You're going to be expected to need to upgrade and really gear up Cliff before heading into certain boss battles in certain regions. So that's definitely something you have to keep in mind. Now, the temperature gauge once again has shifted over to more of like the green section here. So this is like more of a average temperature, and you can see that there's these red sections here where perhaps like heat exhaustion is a thing. So yeah, but I love how it gives you the time of day as well and the actual day. So I just love that. Anyway, moving on.
Environment around your character shows clear atmospheric light scattering. The real-time time of day system also pays off. Days and nights last longer than you usually see in games, and nighttime is genuinely dark. Closer to something like, say, Dragon's Dogma, but with stronger, more consistent ray-traced lighting.
I love that. I love like when the sun sets and you know that this nighttime is going to be pretty long. And I really do like when games up the difficulty with enemies at nighttime, introduce also new enemy variety at nighttime. It's not going to be like the same enemies. I'm hoping that Crimson Desert has something like this and you kind of have to manage stuff as well. in Dragon's Dogma 2, if you head out into the nighttime and you forgot oil for your lantern, you could be pretty screwed. So it would be cool if they had something like that in this game. We'll have to see if they have that level of, I wouldn't call it like survival mechanics, but it is kind of a survival mechanic.
Ray tracing is enabled across all 3 modes, by the way. Yes, there are 3 modes. So the overall lighting quality remains intact and consistent regardless of how you play.
Wow.
The only drawback here is that the denoiser occasionally struggles in more extreme cases. It's not as speckly as Resident Evil Requiem, but it's definitely still noticeable. In particular, I noticed streaking and noise in areas of high contrast. Even so, lighting is a major pillar of the game's visual identity and works beautifully overall. I'll be curious to see how the game looks without ray tracing though, because it seems like the Xbox Series S version does not have this feature.
Yeah, are any of you guys on the Xbox Series S? Let me know. So that will most likely be, I guess you would say, for lack of the better term, the worst version of the game, of course. There's definitely going to be those sacrifices being made for the Xbox Series S. But yeah, PS5 Pro looks beautiful. You know, I have a PS5 Pro myself. I have my PC ready to go. I might be buying this game on both just for the hell of it. It is a shame, though. I will say this. I am bummed it doesn't have cross saves. So I really wished that it was going to have cross saves, but first world problems, I guess. But anyway, moving on here.
Beyond that, I noticed some really great visual touches that I wanted to highlight. For instance, particle shadows. Smoke plumes cast real dynamic shadows that you can observe as you move around. You can see that here if we look at this smokestack and then turn the camera around. You actually see the shadows from the emanating smoke.
Dude, that is... And this is the PS5 Pro version? What in the hell?
It's very cool. And attacks from above actually do the same. It's a subtle feature, not something I've often thought about, but it really adds a surprising amount of depth when it hits. Ray-traced reflections are also something I noticed. With so much water and other reflective surfaces, it's impressive that every mode on PS5 Pro actually includes them. The system manages to blend ray-traced reflections with SSR and signed...
This game's going to be insane. Yeah, you know, it's been climbing the top sellers chart. After today, I guarantee it will be on the #1 spot. No matter what. After seeing this is so crazy and visually stunning. And if all the features really do hold up, yeah, this game could legit be a Game of the Year contender. You know, I guess the story itself is going to be the big question. You know, we've heard some things about the story that it isn't exactly the focus of the game, that this is more of like a game where it's going to be about exploration, you know, side content and that sort of thing, gearing up Cliff more than anything. But there is still a narrative, don't get me wrong. All right.
Distance fields for distant geometry. This is one area where I noticed a little bit of a difference in the performance mode though. The BVH tightens up around the camera, reducing the overall reflection radius. The results still look excellent, but it relies more heavily on the fallback solutions. But honestly, even still, it looks excellent, and the water itself is kind of a standout. Now, I discussed this with Alex in our initial PC preview, but the way the wave system works is super cool.
Now, I've heard that the weather system also affects the ground around you, and it will become more muddy, and you'll have more difficulty traversing, so that is something to also consider. And I'm also wondering if there's going to be like specific gear sets and that sort of thing that will be best for like heat or cold or what have you. I'm pretty sure that they might have something like that. All right.
Waves break and split around rocks, for instance. They wash up on shore and recede naturally. Wet surfaces pick up a specular sheen, and characters themselves even generate ripples that interact convincingly with the environment and other ripples. When you climb into the mountains, you'll see water sort of streaming down the mountainside, right? And
yeah, you know, in Red Dead Redemption 2 in particular, that was one game where I could just explore and just have so much fun just going through the world. It was so strikingly beautiful. This looks like it's going to be the same thing. Just getting on horseback and exploring this nature, is going to be, I know it's going to be fantastic, because look at this. This is giving that same similar vibe as Red Dead Redemption 2. And remember, this game isn't going for like a checklist vibe. It's not going after the Ubisoft formula. They've been very, very clear about this. They want you to explore and discover stuff for yourself. There's very little hand holding, and that's one thing that I think a lot of you guys will be super hyped about. And yeah, you can scale a cliff as long as you have enough stamina. But let's get back into
The
it.
way they've handled all the directionality of the water itself is extremely impressive. But crucially, the water also looks great at scale. When standing on a mountain
Oh my
looking out across
God.
the ocean, for instance, it's still convincing and beautiful.
The lighting.
I also love how they simulate the penetration of light through the surface of the water, like standing in deep water here with your lantern. But the water in general is just beautiful throughout this game and a real visual highlight. The way they're able to scale from nearby ripples to a full ocean is very impressive. And this idea of scale is kind of what surprised me the most. The developers have managed to deliver this combination of ridiculous.
So it just keeps going. This looks like it's more the steampunk area of the game. They are having kind of like this, I don't know if you would call it like dwarven type technology. Yeah, giving off Skyrim Dwemer vibes for sure. I think that's kind of what they're going for. And some people were thrown off by the fact that you can kind of get this like steampunk looking mech suit that you can control. Let me know if that is an issue for you or not. But seeing this, I'm getting now how that can actually fit into the world. This helps a ton with the immersion factor, because I think some people will be really thrown off by having any type of like technology in a medieval type fantasy game. But yeah, I think this is going to lean into more of the Skyrim approach of things and have it meld nicely into the lore and the actual open world. So yeah, awesome to see that there's this open world support behind the stuff that you get. Okay.
Ridiculous near field detail at a huge scale that you can appreciate at a distance.
Whoa, what in the world?
Just stop and look around, right? Every scene is packed with this fine-grained detail. There's an absurd amount of foliage variety, for instance.
And the wind, like all the foliage isn't just static. And remember, again, I keep forgetting this is on PS5 Pro, and they're able to pull this off. What in the
That
hell?
foliage is affected by weather conditions blowing realistically in the wind. When a storm starts to wind up, the trees whip around violently around you. But beyond that, they also react directly to the player and NPC movement as well. Yet it's perhaps the distant rendering of the trees that impressed me the most. You see, this is an area where games typically struggle, yet here
And, you know, Digital Foundry, they also had this really extensive article about how they actually pulled this off. And they did some major trickery to the distant scenes. You know, when you get to a certain point in the distance, they start replacing the trees and objects with certain different types that don't take up too much resources when it comes to streaming. And it's this trick that absolutely sells the scene and creates these beautiful vistas, and almost looks like there's no details lost. So I think you're going to see a lot of game studios try to reverse engineer whatever the hell they have done here. I would not be surprised.
Here, trees far off in the distance are actually properly lit and shadowed, while still giving the perception of detail. Shadowing distant trees has such a positive impact on the overall visual design, and it's something that most other games either skip completely or do in a very blobby, simple fashion.
Oh, yeah.
And this sort of insane detail can also be said of the
So many games skip the vistas in the distance and it gets all blurry. That's one thing. We went through that a lot with Unreal Engine 5 games. And the same thing with the skybox. You look at the skybox and the clouds would look all blurry. I've played games where, you know, it's absolutely beautiful here at this level, eye level, and then you look up and it's blue. It's nice looking, but everything's so damn blurry. And I personally absolutely hate that. And it throws me out of the immersion completely. That does not look to be the case here in Crimson Desert.
surfaces and textures throughout the game. These guys went wild with displacement mapping. It's not a new technique, obviously, but it's everywhere. What do I mean? Well, essentially, just look at the ground here. This allows the developers to simulate depth within a texture, lending that surface increased perceived detail without leveraging more geometry. As a result, every stone, every brick, and just about any other surface in the game.
And you can see that there's NPCs around, and there's been some controversy about how the NPC system actually works in this game. Some people noticed that it seemed like they were a lot more static than previous promised iterations of the actual, life simulation of this game. But what we do know officially about the NPCs and how they work is that you can expect them to basically be divided into several different types of NPC groups. You have your important NPCs, and then kind of like your background dressing NPCs as well. And some of these NPCs will be on routines, of course, but when it comes to like shopkeepers and things like that, they really do want them to be available even at nighttime, so you don't have to go searching for them. So that's something to remember there.
Game is just exploding with visual detail like this. There are virtually no flat surfaces in Crimson Desert. I've never seen this technique executed at scale quite like this, and I do think it adds a lot to the presentation. But there is one downside. It can produce some visual bugs at times. Something I noticed especially in that first town. Stuff like this, for instance, right? The larger issue can be seen when you look at areas where the texture sort of protrudes from the geometry, like this, on edges. There's sometimes flicker and pixelation along these surfaces.
Really weird.
You'll notice it on rock walls, trees, and various other edges, just like that. It's worth mentioning, though, that this bothered me more when I first started the game, but after you start to make progress, you just kind of
I wonder what version he's running on. Like, is this quality version, or is this just for like all three modes? I'm assuming that this is going to be present for all three modes. He doesn't maybe he does clarify here, but it seems like brace yourself for some issues with this game, of course. Yeah, they are going to be rolling out that day one patch, and they will be patching up the game as fast as possible, reasonably post-launch, without breaking the game. I'm sure they don't want to break their own game.
Forget about it. The overall majesty of the visuals kind of takes over. Either way, it's cool to see such a great technique return here.
Oh, hell
There's
yeah.
more to discuss in the visual side, but honestly, for now, I feel like it might be a good time to talk about the specifics around the PS5 Pro version of the game. After all, a lot of people are
I don't know, that previous clip seeing the
wondering just
seeing the NPCs moving about, that alone looked pretty legit. So I'm not like too worried about the open world NPCs. And here we are getting a look at the desert, and you can see like the cloud cover is casting a shadow across the land. Very, very Red Dead Redemption vibes right here.
How it runs, and while you might have a good idea by now, there is more to discuss. So as the spec sheet released by Pearl Abyss notes, there are 3 modes on most consoles, including PS5 Pro: Optimal, which is the performance mode, Balanced, and Quality. This translates to internal resolutions of 1080p, 1440p, and 4K respectively, and our counts confirm this to be the case. Where it differs...
Now, my big question for you guys, what mode are you going to be going for? Are you going to be going after like the fidelity with the 30 frames per second, the high resolution, or do you want it to be more smooth? You lower that resolution, of course, a little bit less on the details, but you still get that 60 frames per second. You know, it's tough for me personally. I have played games easily in 30 frames per second. Going from a 60 frame per second game, or even a game that's running over 120 frames, to a 30 frames per second, it takes me about a half hour for my eyes to adjust, and then I'm good. And then I'm good to go. I'm like, I can't really tell a difference at all. And that's what I did with Red Dead Redemption 2 is, at first it was a little bit to get into, to adjust, but it's easily like my absolute favorite game. And I experienced, that entire game in 30 frames per second. So yeah, to each their own. Let me know what you guys are going to go for.
From the user experience you might have, however, is that the current build we had access to is running with the original PSSR, as opposed to what we affectionately call PSSR2. Thus, image quality wasn't great. Apparently, PSSR2 is planned for launch, but in its current...
So this is not on PSSR2. Damn, I kind of wish this examination... It looks amazing still, but I wish this examination, this deep dive, was on the brand new PSSR 2, because I guess that's going to be a game changer, and they are working closely with Crimson Desert to kind of really showcase it. Now, they did show PSSR 2 on Requiem, Resident Evil Requiem, and it looked great. I mean, they made that look crisp, very crispy, and the details really popped. So I am so curious to see what happens with Crimson Desert. I'm assuming it's going to be good news. But again, this is going to be a wait until launch type situation here.
Current state, I can't really judge image quality yet, aside to say that the usual PSSR artifacts are indeed visible, with smearing around foliage and some ray tracing noise being the most obvious.
I love the lighting here, though. See, this is one thing that's really, really cool. It's like Battlefield 6 launch all over again. But I do like that sort of thing. It's very realistic. That's kind of like how it is. Being indoors and the outdoors is very bright and kind of like over, exposed there.
Very interesting to see how this changes with the upgraded PSSR.
And then your eyes adjust as you head outdoors. It's very cool. Again, look at the NPC interaction right here. The amount going on the screen. Let's pay attention here to see how many are actually moving around on paths versus just standing still.
But the real reason to use the various performance modes actually stems from performance, and Crimson Desert offers some impressive flexibility here. Essentially, by default, each mode corresponds to a different frame rate target. 60 FPS.
Look at that. You don't see any dips or absolute stutters in the actual graph here. It is smooth as butter from what I'm seeing on optimized mode. That is so rare. You do not see that often at all in open world games. Dude.
PS for performance, 40 for balanced, and 30 for quality. The balance mode, of course, requires a 120 Hz output to function correctly.
Now, this is a bit of a wrinkle. I'm still deciding whether or not I want to get this on PS5 Pro or PC, because I could like sit here on my PC and play it, of course. Or I could like sit in my like recliner chair there and play on my TV. It's tough. What do you guys think I should do? Because the 40 frames per second mode sounds actually really legit to me, because 40 frames per second is something that doesn't bother me at all. And it still looks like you get a ton of detail. But chime in, let me know. Since there's no cross saves, that's like the big issue for me. I don't know. I'm still deciding.
The performance mode, though, puts up a good fight. I poured a solid 20 hours or so into the game, and most of that was spent in performance mode. By and large, that 60 FPS target is maintained.
Oh, that grapple move. Yeah, the animation system, the horse movement is extremely impressive. And again, it's really reminiscent of Dragon's Dogma 2.
Surprised by how good it is overall. But it was also enlightening playing this way without any sort of VRR, as it did help me identify specific areas where it can and does drop. Most of the time, that involves larger crowds. Anything involving tons of NPCs or enemies can drop the frame rate. That's not to say there aren't occasional dips in quieter spots like this, but
looks like it's the water effects maybe here that's doing it, or this is just an unoptimized area. They may want to focus in here on these areas post-patch and get them really fine-tuned as they go. I think like this is how I'm thinking they've done this game with optimization. You know, maybe they really optimize and front-load that optimization for the first 20 to 30 hours of the game, and they know how they have time for that like mid to in-game part of the experience to really go in there and optimize it with patches. I've seen that happen before with games, so I'm thinking maybe that might be the case here. And there might be areas in the actual open world where they're asking themselves, where are they going to visit the most at first? This might be one area, you know, where it's maybe mid-game, who knows? Or like a dungeon that you can discover that they will eventually get to optimizing post-patch. At least that's how, you know, I've seen other developers do it.
Overall, most of the drops will happen when it's busy. The most significant of which occurred during the Battle for Bug Hill, as I like to call it. Here, war is waging and casualties include the frame rate, which drops significantly, making it far and away the worst spot I found in the game so far. It starts out okay, sometimes hitting 60, sometimes dropping into the 50s, as you do, but once you actually reach the top of Bug Hill, the specific encampment here, we start to see some major drops, and I think this is actually...
Yeah, now we're getting into the 30s. That's why I was not wanting to see. That's what I was really paying attention to there. So yeah, this area is definitely getting hit hard. This looks like a really key point in the game, maybe. I don't know if it's like a story mission, but look at the mini map. Holy crap, there are so many enemies. I honestly don't want them to scale back the enemies. It's like my first suggestion is like maybe they should scale back the enemies. But I'm thinking that hopefully they can just optimize this with that day one patch.
Worse by kiting enemies around, because I came here before my character was ready and would die instantly if hit, so I have a ton of insects chasing me around. And as a result, we actually see the frame rate slip all the way into the 30s. I believe this section is very specifically CPU limited, as it deals with so many active enemies at once.
I feel like these flying things are going to be possibly one of the most hated creatures in the damn game. But you do have your bow and arrow. So I'm seeing that, yeah, you're going to really want to actually invest in your archer skills. Now, there is, of course, a playable character that does get like a musket, which is really cool. So maybe you can like go in here and really succeed at this area. That would make a lot of sense.
It makes sense. You can trigger similar results in some of the game's large cities, especially when causing a ruckus like this. Once the crowd starts to panic and the guards rush the player character, the frame rate definitely takes a hit as well.
Oh my god.
Crucially, it is not the norm at all, so don't take that away from it. But it does show you that certain situations can bring the performance to its knees. In comparison,
did you see how the camera zoomed out? That was actually really cool. So as he knocked that dude off the cliff, he was still locked on the camera, knew to like zoom out. I've heard that the camera can be a little bit wonky sometimes, but I found that shot to be actually legit.
30 and 40 FPS modes are largely more stable overall, holding their targets reasonably well. Like here, I visited Bug Hill in quality mode, and we're rendering 4 times the number of pixels here. It's 4K mode, right? Plus the graphics quality is increased even. Yet despite dipping into the 30s in performance mode, we're actually hitting a stable 30 FPS here in that quality mode, which is pretty great. Weirdly enough, the balance mode actually manages to hit a pretty stable 40 FPS in this area too. All of this can be influenced by dynamic elements, of course, like this run here in the 40 Hz mode. The reason it looks kind of fuzzy is that it started raining. So I'm running through this area in the rain. And yeah, we still see some dips here, but overall it's pretty good.
Yeah, considering all the effects that are going on, you can see that the like rain is not just like some sort of 2D filter over the screen, and it's picking up on the lighting in the environment, which I always love to see when rain, you know, it falls near like fire or what have you, it lights up every rain drop. So that's what's actually happening here in Crimson Desert. And I can kind of see what he's talking about with the blurriness. If you look closely at the tower here and the enemies in the distance, I can completely see what he's talking about. And this is in balance mode, and you have to consider there are tons of enemies on the screen. This seems like it's a very large scale game, which, dude, if they could pull this off, makes me wonder like what they could do with something like Lord of the Rings. I'm serious. If this dev team made a Lord of the Rings game, holy crap.
This is a surprisingly heavy game, and I don't mean in terms of performance. I mean the way it feels to play. It seems intentional, but at 30 FPS, the camera and the character movement feel less responsive than I'd have normally liked. Thus, I do recommend the 40 or 60 FPS modes, which help a bit. The thing is, the game feels similarly heavy on PC, even at higher frame rates, so I think it's a design choice. Now, if not for capturing, I think I'd have probably stuck...
Yeah, you know, that's interesting. He mentions that it feels heavy. I wonder if he's talking about, like, in the rain or what there. But, yeah, it was mentioned from another preview that I found. I wish I could remember the exact source, but they mentioned it seemed like when mud actually forms from the rain, your character can slow down. So that might be what's actually going on there. So that's something to consider. Because it's definitely raining right here. But you can see it's not like Cliff is freezing cold. Maybe he has the right gear on.
With the 40 FPS mode, since I feel like it finds a nice balance between image quality and performance. But once we factor in the new PSSR, it might actually make sense just to stick with performance the entire time.
Look at the lighting, like these magical things going off here. It's lighting up his whole body. That is just like the lighting.
The thing is though,
so
if you drop
crazy.
into the options menu, you might notice something else. There's a V-Sync toggle.
Oh, okay.
Let me start by saying that if you're not using a VRR display, do not turn on this option. It is horrifically bad and clearly not intended for use without VRR.
At least they have the option there. You know, I absolutely hate any type of vertical tearing with a freaking passion. Even if I'm playing a competitive FPS game like Battlefield or whatever, as crazy as it sounds, I'm going to turn on VSync.
I mean, just look at this. The results are extremely awful. Don't use it, trust me. Dude. But it does become useful when combined with VRR. But mainly just in performance mode. You see, despite the 120 Hz container, the VRR in this game does not seem to support low frame rate compensation like some other major first-party titles. So when it dips out of the VRR range, screen tearing reappears. This makes the setting unsuitable for quality and even balanced mode.
See, I see a lot of NPCs moving around. I am way less concerned about it than ever. So I see NPCs on the path, they're carrying stuff. Yes, there are your static NPCs, but it seems like it's not so simple as some suggested, where it was like you had your important NPCs and then your, you know, window dressing or what have you, as they said it. It seems like to me they have multiple groups of NPC types in the world, which is very, very cool.
Because tearing does appear. When coupled with performance mode, however, it's legitimately cool and allows frame rates that go above 60 FPS. It's honestly the most responsive and smooth feeling mode in the game, and as you can see, manages to keep frame rates under control. I did a full walk from one area to the other, and it gives a good idea of what you can expect. Using this mode, you won't really detect frame rate dips at all outside of perhaps places like Bug Hill. Honestly though, when it comes to overall performance, I do think the results here are pretty good. When you consider the scope of the game...
Yeah, he was getting up to like 68, 69 on the console frame. So that's actually really legit. I love the smooth, buttery smooth 60 plus frames. That's what I absolutely go for here. But again, here is the desert, the Crimson Desert. I feel like there's going to have to be something really special about this desert, since it's literally like the name of the game.
The reasonably high resolution targets, more than we see.
Oh, okay. So you can notice something really cool here, and it is a gameplay mechanic. The temperature gauge is actually in this heat zone, and it is giving off a warning icon. Watch this. I'm going to press play. Hopefully it just stays on this clip.
With any other UE5 games, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's flashing.
The results are pretty impressive, reflecting on all the various big open world games this gen.
Interesting. So I'm wondering what type of gameplay implications that has. Like, will you have to find a cool spot, get into the shade? Would that help? Wear lighter type gear heading into the desert? That sort of thing I would love. You know, it's very, again, Red Dead Redemption 2 had kind of like a similar system. I remember going kind of like fast traveling and having like a coat on and then ending up in a hot area, and it warned me, hey, you know what, you're freaking overheating here. So
Crimson Desert is one of the better performance overall. It's not perfect by any means, and I do have some issues with certain image quality things, but still, I think it's fair to say that the console version, at least on PS5 Pro, is very good. So, with the performance situation firmly established on PS5 Pro, we await the other consoles to see how it stacks up there. But regardless...
Yeah, that's the one thing, is the base PlayStation. Let me know how many of you guys are on the base PlayStation right now. That's where it's going to get very, very interesting. They did at least give us that performance spec sheet for everything, so they've been transparent there. But yeah, it sounds like it's going to run at 60 frames per second on the PlayStation, and it's going to have those 3 different modes, of course. But out of the consoles, the console world of things, it looks like the place to be would be the PlayStation 5 Pro.
there are a few other cool things I wanted to talk about that caught my eye while playing this game, and to do that, I want to take you on a small journey. You see, early on I made the decision to test the open world,
Getting trippy.
not knowing what was in store for me nor how large the game world really was.
Oh boy.
So I set a waypoint just out in the middle of nowhere to sort of guide me in the proper direction, and I just went. It started smoothly enough. Riding across these gorgeous fields on my horse, I marveled at the realistic sky rendering, the atmospheric light scattering. It felt so realistic.
And this game is a colorful game. That's the one thing I love, is that it has a full-blown color palette. They weren't afraid to go colorful, but not like too overwhelming with that, because I get put off by games that are absolutely too colorful. This one is just right, in my opinion. And it seems like it varies depending on what region you're in.
And impressive. I appreciated the sheer density of the environment around me, the grass blades swaying in the wind, the trees, the foliage, the interactions with the horse, the way every hoof matches the terrain. Yeah, there's definitely some visible LOD popping along the way, which I don't love, but given the scale and the performance, it's understandable.
But even still, I'm seeing like minimal pop-in. I'm trying to really pay attention to that. Pop-in is just, seems like it's been a thing with open world games, and I honestly have gotten so used to it, sometimes I don't even notice it. But here, yeah, I'm seeing absolute minimal pop-in. Let's see.
Eventually, I reached this lengthy wall running across the terrain and decided to ride full speed towards this scaffolding, and was surprised at how seamlessly you could leap off your horse and grab onto the structure. Very cool stuff. Of course, it was seemingly for nothing, as my horse was able to just walk right through here on the bottom when I called him. Oh well. So I continued, and my next idea was to sort of wreak havoc in a nearby field.
Oh yeah,
to
those
test the
horse
game's
animations,
physics
I
and
love
performance.
that.
That's where I discovered
The Ghost franchise, Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yote do an amazing job with that like circular motion, rearing up your horse. So it seems like you can do like some sort of rearing maneuver there.
drifting, where you can essentially
drifting,
sharply spin the horse around in circles in a way that feels awesome. Impressively, most smaller objects in the environment can be knocked down or destroyed by simply ramming into them, making this a lot of fun.
And apparently you can go in here and chop down every freaking tree and collect the resources from the wood. And, you know, a lot of people are like, is there a deforestation like trophy that you can earn? You know, maybe that could be a thing.
There is a small delay when destroying physics-based items, but still, it feels really great. I then rode towards a small nearby village and attempted to knock down these things as well, only to mistakenly reveal an enemy that was just hiding in the middle.
Oh, damn.
Then suddenly, from off-screen, a giant guard leaped into action and eliminated him immediately. Whoa.
Holy crap. So you can see how dynamic everything is. And, you know, I'm blown away by the destructibility. The sheer level of destructibility is insane. And, you know, we've heard that you can kind of like go in and absolutely dismantle and destroy like an entire enemy camp too, which is really cool.
With that, though, I decided to continue forward, looking for anything interesting, and it's here that I noticed the somewhat noisy ray-traced lighting visible along the foliage here, and that reminded me that we're looking at the original PSSR. We'll be very curious to see how this looks with the upgraded PSSR at launch.
Right, yeah.
But moving forward, I decided it was time to play around with some guards just to sort of test the AI, right?
Dude.
The results, I thought, were interesting. So after angering them, I ran away and decided to climb up on the roof of this house just to see what would happen. Turns out these guards can climb as well, and they quickly tried to overwhelm me. While the shields clipping through the roof looks a bit awkward, the result of fighting them on the roof was really interesting. I was trying to kick them off, knock them down the slope, etc., and was doing okay, but eventually they overwhelmed me. So I tried to run again, and this time they killed me, causing me to respawn nearby.
I love how persistent they are. They will not give up, even like if you're on a rooftop. And it's cool how their footing, you know, kind of matches the slope there. That takes some major animation work. That is not easy to do. So you could tell they segmented development here and focused on every little detail along the way.
And it's from this respawn point that I randomly stumbled upon this circus, and Honestly, this one really surprised me as well because it felt strangely lively. There was no story reason to be here, at least not yet. But wow, look at this. The frame rate, of course, was a little unstable here,
Wow.
but I was surprised to see that there was an actual circus performance happening inside this tent, all lit with real-time ray tracing.
I have very little complaints about the NPCs of this world at this point. This is wild. And, you know, more than anything, this is giving off Witcher 3 vibes right here. The colors, the actual look of this, for me personally, very much looks like The Witcher 3.
Very, very cool, right? But then
Yeah,
I
holy
stumbled
crap.
back outside and figured I'd mess with the AI again, so I tried to attack NPCs. This revealed that when you first swipe at NPCs, they actually just fall back and avoid your blade. But if you keep doing this, eventually the circle of pain draws around your character, and everything within this circle that is, say, a guard or an enemy will suddenly come for you. What
Oh,
impressed me,
okay.
though, is the way in which the crowds dispersed, not just randomly in
So it seems like they do that to kind of like protect the player that does not want to accidentally hurt an NPC or kill an NPC and cause like a bounty. So at first, when you're swiping, I think you'll miss the NPCs. It seems they'll get back and you're like, oh, like if you accidentally press a button, you'll be fine. But if you keep doing it and doing it over and over again, then that's where like the bounty notice will be applied, and then they will start going after you. It's actually a really cool system to kind of protect the player that accidentally hits the wrong button prompt.
all directions. Rather, they actually made their way as a group towards the exit in a panic as the guards then entered the scene to take me out.
This is crazy.
Which recalls something cool about fighting because you see similar behavior with enemies as well. If, say, you're fighting some bandits and you kill most of them, there's a point where some Romanian
Oof.
enemies might actually
What a
freak
slam
out and
move.
just attempt to run away.
It's the wrestling moves that really make this Crimson Desert, in my opinion. You don't see too many open world games embrace like actual like wrestling moves, like pile drivers and stuff like that.
From you. You can, of course,
Oh,
take them out
good.
with an
Oh,
arrow
cool,
if you're a
bow.
good shot, mind you. It's a neat touch that adds a tinge of realism to the encounters. I really like the AI behavior in this game. From there, though, I kept moving forward, and eventually that's where I found Bug Hill, as I mentioned earlier, and this was quite a shock when I first found it. You see, up until this point, everything had this sort of grounded medieval flavor, but suddenly we had mechanical insects, airships, balloons, orcs, all fighting on the side of the mountain, and it looked
And it like still works, you know? I feel like it still really does work. Again, coming from Skyrim, it makes sense that they would add this sort of thing in the game. But I do understand to a degree how it might throw some people off, but I know that there's going to be story reasons for this. But you kind of see in the distance here how foggy it is as well. That is so badass looking. Look at the fog rolling in here in this like valley section. Dude.
super cool. This is when I did some of my performance testing, of course, but eventually I survived Bug Hill and found this amazing orc city built upon a mountain,
Nice.
which looked wholly unlike anything else I'd seen in the game yet. The sheer level of detail, the pipes, and the ornate structures really impressed. But
And it looks like we went from like a bright, vibrant green environment to more like a brown tone. And it's kind of like toned down, muddied, which gives a very different feel to this area. And I think that's what they're going for with the different biomes. You're also going to have, you know, your snowy region, which is going to be bright. And I think you're going to have like blue skies and things like that. And then, of course, your desert region, which isn't just going to be brown. It looks like they're going to have red rock and things like that to really make it very lively and vibrant there. But it's cool to see the different biomes at work here.
it was time to continue. And as night fell, I noticed a city in the distance, and that city seemed to be illuminated by electric lights. Sure enough, it was.
Oh,
This
what?
sort of farmland was just spread out across the terrain. At first,
Oh,
we
that's
thought it
wild.
was Nazca lines, but it's actually an electric farm of
I'm
some
surprised they're
sorts.
showing so much.
Very strange. Very different mood as well. The HDR in this scene, by the way, was very impactful. I loved both the lights with the strong highlight, as well as the beautiful night sky with its gorgeous volumetric cloud system.
And they got like the kind of like God rays coming from the moon there. This shot alone is so beautiful, dude. I'm gonna get lost in this game. Look at that. I am so going to get lost in this.
So I continued, climbing the mountain in the darkness with just my torch, fumbling around. Night is really dark in this game, and it makes navigation more treacherous. I ended up exploring the cliffs, engaging a few foes, before eventually finding this view, which is just awesome.
Yeah, the lighting.
Rather than diving in, though, I decided to take a left turn of sorts and make my way down to the shore to check out the water and take in the view. The water was beautiful. Of course, I was ready to capture the scene. It really feels like you're standing at the edge of the world. But of course, you're...
And, you know, there are gameplay implications to being in an area like this. It doesn't look like there's much to do right here, but you can actually go fishing. You can see how you can collect some of the, you know, sea critters that are moving around the beach and that sort of thing. It looks like there's a ship you can explore. So there are reasons for you to be on the actual water. Now, is there going to be underwater exploration from what I have heard? No, that is not going to be the case. There was like a wild leak saying, oh my God, you can actually go underwater, guys. There's something really cool under there. But I think that leak is absolute BS.
not. So I kept moving, this time walking down the beach, eventually reaching this sort of rocky terrain. That was where I decided to test the climbing system again, and yeah, it works similarly to Breath of the Wild. You have a stamina meter and can climb most surfaces. It's actually influenced by heat
and, you know, some people are annoyed by the actual stamina indicator. Let me know, are you guys annoyed by this thing that pops up by Cliff all the time? Would you prefer it to be somewhere else, maybe near the mini-map, you know, away from his character? I don't mind at all, personally. You know, I've dealt with this mechanic in many games like this. I think like Genshin Impact even had it, so yeah.
Cold as well, which makes it harder to climb such surfaces. What I really like about it, though, is the way the animation system successfully matches your character's hands to logical positions as you climb the surface. It feels very gratifying as a result.
I tell you what, I bet Ubisoft is a bit like nervous. They're going to have to like really come together and formulate a plan on how they're going to be able to counter, you know, and provide like really good open world games that don't feel so checklisted and you know, stuff like that.
Eventually, I made it to the top, and waiting for me up here
it's like a totally
turned out to be a rainforest.
Whoa.
And the mood shifted greatly because it's not just a rainforest, it actually started to rain. Your local torch lights up the droplets around you in a beautiful fashion.
And you can collect, you know, different types of vegetation, flowers, that sort of thing. But again, you could see here how your lantern is lighting up the actual rain particles. That is just beautiful, dude.
As the area around your character is battered by the storm, other lighting effects like this random blue glow from something produces dramatic results as well. I
have a feeling there's going to be some secrets, you know, and they might guide you towards them with lighting or something like that. That could be a thing.
Loved about this sequence in the jungle is that the fog and rain combined with the thickness of the trees really limits your view. It really feels isolated, as if you were actually exploring a deep jungle. Along the way, I navigated rapids, appreciating that awesome water system, dealt with a few more enemies in their encampments, walked along some cliff sides, including making some leaps of faith, before eventually reaching the edge of the forest itself. And that's when the rain started to let up, which highlighted another cool detail. Rain actually leaves behind puddles that persist for hours of game world time. It's not just a binary thing where it's rainy or not. It actually comes and goes realistically, leaving its mark, something that really adds to the realism.
And it looks like it might, from what I'm seeing with Cliff, it looks like it does perhaps slow down your character a little bit. That would make sense to me.
By this point, though, I managed
Dude, imagine making that jump right there. There better be something on that branch. I'm assuming that there's something over here that you can actually obtain. Maybe there isn't. Maybe it's just about the view, which is also really cool.
Climb up the side of this steep cliff and found myself staring out across the Crimson Desert itself. From the opening village to the top of this mountain here, It took me roughly 4 hours of traversal and exploration.
Holy crap. 4 hours. And I don't even think he was exploring the entire map at all. What And look, we're in the Crimson Desert here. You can see multiple biomes in the distance. Yeah, you will be able to go to this mountain, you know, and climb. And again, like the skyboxes are absolutely stunning here.
So, yeah, I think you get it by now. The amount of variety and display here is outstanding. And what I've shown you is just a small taste, a tiny path through the game world, a simple walk from one part of the map to another that became a memorable adventure. And this is before exploring the character's abilities or allowing the story to get started. I haven't felt this need to explore since games like Red Dead Redemption 2 or perhaps Breath of the Wild.
Hell yes.
This is without a doubt one
ready.
of the most impressive open world experiences I've ever had. I genuinely felt...
Again, you know, that one review that came out recently, I covered it on the channel. You could find it, you know, on the channel. It's after 50 hours of playing the game. He said it's his like all-time favorite open world game ever as of now, after 50 hours, which is saying something. And I think that's going to be the case with a lot of you guys. Potentially it's going to be right up there with some of the best. Story? We'll see about story. But it seems like with the open world and exploration and stuff like that.
I found myself asking the question, how the heck did they do this over and over again? It really is that cool. And all of it worked great on PlayStation 5 Pro, even in this pre-release state. Of course, it's not perfect. As noted, performance can dip at times. There are some visual bugs with the displacement
mapping. Wow, he found
and
the trailer area. I always remember seeing this in the trailer. I cannot wait to find this area and actually walk it all cinematic myself. Now, also there are multiple camera angles you could choose from. I think there's like 4 different types of camera angles. So really up close. You can even go into like first person, but there is no first person combat. So yeah, you can mess around with the camera.
RT, and in some cases, actual bugs, like here in the desert, where I found myself swimming above the water at
There's
one
gonna
point.
Be some funny bugs.
Plus, the loading sequence when loading a save is weirdly lengthy with this animation and music that sort of plays out before you dropped into the world, which thankfully respawning on death is very quick, and there's no other loading times during actual gameplay, so it's not a huge deal. Even with all that, though, this is fantastic on PS5 Pro. They actually did it.
Question is, can you ride the train? Can you actually use it as like a mechanic to get around the world, perhaps even like as a fast travel mechanic? That's kind of like what I'm curious about too.
Which brings us to the end of our first contact with the game. There's still so much more to explore here. Like, I feel like I've just gotten started. And again, this is not a game that was super high on my hype list. It just kind of came out of nowhere. And yet, what I've played here just felt unbelievable at times.
I've been hyped about this game forever, but I didn't know if it was real. You know what I mean? I can see that Pearl Abyss is a very talented developer based on what they did with Black Desert Online and what they're also currently working with their other projects. But I'm so happy that it's real. It seems like it's actually legit real.
Even on the console. So I'll be curious, of course, how it plays on other machines. And that's something we'll report on very soon.
All right. So yeah, check out Digital Foundry's video. Check out their other examinations because they have some really, really cool stuff. But I'm so glad they showcased some gameplay on console. Yeah, it looks overwhelmingly impressive. I cannot wait. Yeah, we did get some bad news today about Denuvo, of course, on PC, but also news that told us maybe they prepared Crimson Desert for Denuvo. And they were aware of this based on the fact that Digital Foundry was playing the PC version that they played with Denuvo enabled. So yeah, that's a takeaway there from that. But thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned here for more, and I will see you all next time. Take care.